One Question is designed to give subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown and welcome to One Question, where we highlight executive leaders in college athletics. Our guest today is Jessica Poole. Jessica is the Senior Associate Athletics Director for External Relations at Florida Atlantic University. Greetings, Jessica. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Now, Jessica, based on what's out there in terms of your background in college athletics, you've been in the industry for 13 years. There at Florida Atlantic, you'll be over communications, marketing, and corporate sponsorship. This role, from my understanding, will be your first leadership role where you're over a couple of departments. You've been at Michigan, you've been at UNC Greensboro, Dartmouth, Mississippi, and you just moved over from Vanderbilt. And based on your experiences throughout your career, working for various athletic directors and senior associate athletic directors and people you've worked with and for, what do you consider effective leadership?
I think effective leadership has a lot of different components, and I think it looks different for each of us as individuals. But I think that for me, I think that what makes an effective leader and some of the key aspects of effective leadership are first self-awareness of yourself as a leader and knowing your strengths and your weaknesses and your tendencies, and then also recognition of your employees, and their strengths and their weaknesses and how best to get the best out of them. I think probably that's, as far as leadership, I think that's the biggest thing. If you can get the best out of your employees and know how to reach them, I think that's huge, and you've already won half the battle. And for me, I think collaboration is huge. I love to brainstorm. I love to sit in meetings and hear other people's ideas. And I think that if you collaborate with folks, I think that gives them a chance to really be involved in what you're doing instead of just kind of dishing out responsibilities. If you bring people in and let them feel as if they are involved at the ground level, they're always going to have an affinity for that. So those are the three areas that I really think are important for leaders, and not just leaders, but for anyone. I think that particularly self-awareness, if you know how you are much more aware of how you are with other folks. So I think those are the three areas, at least for me, that are really important. And I've been really, really fortunate to work with great collaborative ADs and senior level executives, folks that really were interested in hearing what I had to say and what the rest of my colleagues had to say, so that we always felt like we were involved in major decisions or even little decisions. We always felt like we were involved, and I think that made us want to contribute to the best of our ability.
I've interviewed a few athletic directors here on this One Question podcast, and one thing that comes up is the first thing you said, that self-awareness and understanding who you are. That's not something that is always easy for people to come to, right? You have a lot of external input and you read a lot of leadership books and you try to emulate other people, but until you can get to that point where you know exactly who you are, like you said, your strengths and weaknesses, when you get to that point, you'll be probably the most effective that you can possibly be. How have you come to the point of self-awareness? What has been your process throughout your years?
It's funny you say that, is that it is probably one of the harder things, I think, for all of us. Is it's hard to kind of look in the mirror and be like, this is what I'm good at. I think that's the easier part. But I think that really taking a hard look and seeing where your weaknesses are, or maybe areas that you're not as strong at, is a little bit harder. And I have been fortunate that my village is really good. The people that I surround myself with very much know that I'm looking for that type of input about myself. So when they notice things or notice my tendencies, they tend to remind me, and they tend to say, hey, I noticed when this happens, this is how you respond. So you may want to think about this, or you may want to change your approach to this. And so I think that really having people around you that know you and can point out things to you in a nice way, of course, is key. I read a lot, and I read a lot of books from outside of the sports industry, because I think sometimes it's good to know what's happening in the business world. It's good to know what's happening in the entertainment world, because leadership is leadership. And I think that you can get a different perspective from folks that don't necessarily sit in your exact seat every day. it enhances your background. It makes you look at things from a different perspective. And for me, that's key. I love athletics, obviously, but I think that getting a different perspective from other industries and other folks is really good and helps to build up your repertoire and helps to build up your leadership capability.
Right. And I'd imagine there's a process of self-evaluation, right? You mentioned you look in the mirror and you know what your strengths are. But when you find yourself in a challenging time where one of your weaknesses may have surfaced, the process of self-evaluation probably helps you with that self-awareness too.
Absolutely. There are a lot of times when I will be very honest with you, one of my probably weaknesses, but something that I've been working on is body language. And I think that's something that 99% of us struggle with. I give myself pep talks. Like if I know I'm going to have a difficult conversation in the morning, I'll get up and I'll role play with myself just to kind of give myself a little extra confidence, because I know at times, sometimes my body language, and that's kind of how it is. It's just one of those things that I have to work on, and that I'll always have to work on. I'll be 90 years old in the nursing home having to work on body language.
Right.
But once you know something is not your strong suit, it becomes, I think, your responsibility to work at that. And I really take that seriously, because I think that if the folks that you're working with and working for know that you're working on something and know that you're taking ownership of not only your strengths but also your weaknesses, I think it also makes you a better employee and makes you a better leader, and it makes you real.
Right. And I'd imagine stepping into this role, body language is going to be very important for you as you step into this senior level position and work with various departments in terms of them reporting to you and you giving them direction. The second thing you mentioned was understanding the people you work with and for, almost talent evaluation. Good leaders definitely can evaluate talent and then know how to make that talent effective within their organization. Talk to me about how you've developed that skill, or is it something that's inert? Some people are just great at it, or is that something you've had to develop throughout your time?
I think I have a little bit of a natural knack for helping to nurture people in their strengths, for sure. That's something that I've always been really good at doing. But I also think that it's really good to help people become well-rounded. That's one thing that I've really taken pride in, at least for myself, is making sure that I have a working background and knowledge of a lot of different areas. Because first of all, you never know when you're going to need those skills. You never know when you're, in a situation where somebody doesn't know the answer and you do. So I think just helping my employees to kind of know themselves, but also provide them different perspectives and way of looking at things. One thing that I have noticed as I'm transitioning into this new position is that sometimes people don't recognize what their strengths are. And some people are just kind of working off of, well, everyone's always told me that I'm really good at this, so I'm really good at this. And not to say that they're not good at that, but there are also other areas that they're maybe stronger in. So it's been kind of nice to give an outside opinion, essentially, and say, hey, you're really good at this. Have you ever thought about doing this? Or have you ever thought about looking at it from this perspective? So it's kind of nice. It's kind of been a really unique situation to be evaluating, but also helping some people see some areas that maybe they didn't know that they could consider a strength.
Right. Basically, as you get to know those you work with, you can help them along the path to self-awareness.
Right. Exactly.
That's an excellent point. Thinking about the things you mentioned, self-evaluation and self-awareness, understanding people's strengths and weaknesses that work for and with you, and then also you mentioned collaboration. What aspects of those three things are you going to bring with you to your new position? I'd imagine all of them, but how do you think they will help you in terms of your new role as Senior Associate Athletics Director for External Relations?
Well, I think that the collaboration piece, like I said earlier, I love to collaborate. I could sit in an office with probably anyone and brainstorm and throw out ideas, and I think that's probably my strength. I have been very fortunate to have a lot of experience with other areas within college athletics, and I think that that's one of my strengths, is that I'm able to see something that, let's say, the communications area wants to do, but I'm able to see it as a benefit to development and ticketing and marketing. And so my brain kind of works in an unsiloed way, and I think that's really probably going to be my biggest strength and asset here is getting us to see things from not just the vantage point of our particular departments, but from a grand overview of how this one thing that could be a very simple thing can affect and make us better in so many different areas. And so I'm really excited about the opportunity to bring in different folks and have these brainstorming sessions and to really do some new and unique things in a way that maybe hasn't been done here before, just by merely getting all the players in the room. And I think that's the first step, is just realizing that we all have a benefit and can all help each other. And if we get everybody in the room, sometimes your best media relations idea may come from your development guy. Sometimes your best development idea or ticketing idea may come from your media relations folks. So really getting all of those people in the room together is what I enjoy doing, and I enjoy being a facilitator of ideas. And I'm really looking forward to bringing that to FAU.
Of course, the staff there at FAU is relatively new to the institution. But you mentioned offline that you've done a whole lot of diligence in terms of background, and you do that every stop you take in terms of, who you're going to work with and for. And I would imagine that collaboration was one of the things you've heard about the people you're working for, which makes you excited to get there.
Absolutely. I think that we've got a great group here, and I do think in the first couple of weeks we've always kind of end up in someone's office and are throwing ideas out. And I'm sitting in my office right now, and I've got ideas on my whiteboard, and it's been really fun the first couple of weeks, getting to know everyone, but also getting to see how we can collaborate together to make this place pop.
Well, Jessica, it looks like they hired someone who is excited to be there. It also sounds like you have a method to your approach at leadership for your role there at Florida Atlantic University. I really appreciate you joining us here on One Question.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
That was Jessica Poole. She was recently named the Senior Associate Athletics Director for External Relations at Florida Atlantic University. And she talked about 3 aspects of effective leadership, those being self-awareness, understanding who you work with and for, and collaborative decision-making. And of course, this is Ty Brown with One Question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of One Question is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.